have been on my if you have been in my sessions before, there might be some slides that you've seen before, and there might be some activities that you know I'm going to be doing. And don't give away any of the secrets for the others. So in the beginning, there was movement. And in the womb, the first movements occur, and these movements initiate childhood development and communication. And communication is a method of outwardly expressing our experiences and our thoughts, because communication isn't always language. It can be body communication, it can be eyes, it can be different ways of communicating. And movement is instrumental in the formation of the brain, and subsequently each repetitive movement strengthens neural pathways, cementing communication between the body and the brain. So what does this mean? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to cross our arms. If you've done it before, then you should be good at it by now. So we're just going to fold our arms as if we were in the staff room or if we were waiting for a bus, just crossing our arms. Now, according to research, you will have your dominant hand up and tucked underneath. That's not always the case, but research says that that's generally the case. If you haven't got your dominant hand on top and tucked underneath, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just an anomaly to research. That is all. Now wiggle your fingers for me and cross your arms the opposite way. And wiggle your fingers. Cross them back the original way. I want to see you doing this actually. I'm going to stop the share. Go back to your original way and wiggle your fingers. Cross them the opposite way. I'm loving this movement. I saw somebody doing this, trying to work out how to do it. Amy, you're giving yourself a hug. Let's have a look. The other Amy, yes. Some of you have got it. So talk to me. Was it easy to cross your arms the opposite way? No? Tell me about it, Callum. You're shaking your head. Come off mute and tell me what happens.
I had to genuinely think about it.
You have to genuinely think about it. Lovely. Thank you, Callum. Anybody else want to tell me what happened when they tried it? You can come off mute and tell me.
It wasn't comfortable at all. It didn't feel natural.
It didn't feel natural or comfortable, Tanya. Fabulous. Anybody else? You had to think about it and work out how to do it. From Carol. Anybody else? Any other comments? No, well, why was that so difficult? Such a simple task. Well, the reason it was so difficult is because we have been crossing our arms the same way all of our life. And what's happened is we've repeated that action over and over again. So it's become cemented within the neural architecture of our brain. So that means we don't need to think about it. It's an automated movement, not requiring any cognitive processing or cortical control. It's all automated. But when we tried it the other way, we had to really think about it. And that's because that's a new movement, and that pathway within our brain connecting the axons, the neurons and the synapses together is a new pathway. So it's having to make that pathway. It's almost like, think about going through some long grass and you're trying to get through. It's going to take 200 times to make that path, cemented pathway. So that's your homework for tonight. Cross your arms the opposite way 200 times and it will be cemented within the neural architecture of your brain. Now, why am I telling you this? Because young children are learning their new physical skills. And new physical skills need to be repeated approximately 200 times to be cemented. Now, the brain can only prioritize one cognitive processing task at a time. And the cognitive processing tasks we ask of our brain are speaking, listening, and new physical skills. So let's think about that. So if these young children in our care, if we want to think about listening and communication, verbal communication, then they can only prioritize one of those at a time. And in early childhood, the brain is going to prioritize new physical skills. Let me give you an example. Hannah has a jug of water and she's 3 and she has a glass and she's lifting that jug. It's very full and she's about to pour it. And you say, Hannah, look what you're doing. Hold the glass. Now, Hannah's going to do one of 2 things. She's going to stop to listen to you, which means the water will go everywhere, or she's not going to listen and focus because her brain cannot do both those things. Does that make sense to everybody? So let's just have a time to reflect on that. So how is that relevant in terms of communication and language? Have a think about that. How is that relevant to what I'm saying now in terms of communication and language? Would anybody like to share? How is that relevant? Because the brain is going to prioritize one cognitive processing task. So if we have children who are struggling with communication and language, the more physical skills we do for them, the more we help to embed those physical skills in the neural pathway of their brain will be free for speaking and listening. So if we have children where English is a second language, new physical skills. Children who are struggling with vocabulary, new physical skills. Exactly that. We need to think how we communicate and not overload. Are we just talking for the sake of it? Are we praising as a child is climbing up the ladder who might be new to physical skills and we're saying, well done, keep going, you're doing a great job? Where actually that child just needs to be focusing on that. And when they come down, fabulous, great job, high five, really lovely climbing. So think about the language that you're using and use it effectively rather than just sporadically all over the place. Think about how effective your communication is and think about those new physical skills as well. Okay, let me move on to the screen share. So I just want to talk about these 2 things which I hear a lot in early years and early childhood settings. Be careful. Now, what does that mean if you're 2, 3 or 4? Be careful. What does it mean? How is it going to affect that child's response? How are they going to respond to that? Is it better to give some instructions prior to them engaging in that activity? If they're walking along a balance beam, be careful. Would it be better to say, stop? Would it be better to say, can I help? Would it be better to say, look at the balance beam. Be careful as you move along. How can we think about reframing our language? Line up is another one that I struggle with. When we get children to line up, we know that they have no concept of what a line is because they haven't yet started to develop something called spatial reasoning, where they start to make mental pictures in their brain. So they have no concept of what a line is. Unless you place a piece of masking tape or you draw a chalk line on the floor, then they're going to be able to understand what a line looks like. And once they've got that, they can then start to make that representation in their mind, and then you can remove that piece of masking tape. So just think about language. Think about how you use your language in your everyday. Now I want to share with you the non-statutory guidance from Development Matters and Birth to 5 Matters, just on where it talks specifically about gross motor movement, fine motor movement and literacy and communication. So gross motor skills provide the foundation for developing healthy bodies and social emotional well-being. Fine motor control and precision helps with hand and eye coordination, which is later linked to early literacy. And then we can see that physical development is intricately interwoven with emotional, social, cognitive and language development. Those 3 prime areas are all interwoven. There isn't one that's at the top and the other 2 are lower. They are all interwoven and interconnected. Now let's look at the best start in life, part 2, the prime areas of learning, and what that says. So it says, communication and language are described as fundamental to every aspect of young children's thinking and learning. The review emphasises that the rate of children's language development depends heavily on their interactions with adults, and we know this. We know the importance of the home learning environment, languages, stories, the vocabulary they hear in the home, but also in the early years setting. And it highlights that every interaction between practitioner and child is a teaching opportunity. It goes on to say the report notes that the prime areas of learning, communication, language, PD and PSED are all interlinked, reiterating what it says in the non-statutory guidance. And it points out that children who are more physically active in early years tend to regulate their emotions better and achieve better in primary school. And it also stresses that high quality early education delivered through skillful adult interaction, attentive planning and responsive pedagogy matters, especially for children who might not get those rich language experiences outside the setting. And then moving on, this is the specific areas, so the best start in life, part 3. It emphasises that early language, communication and rich vocabulary are foundational. Early spoken language skills underpin later reading and writing. Shared reading, stories, rhymes and songs are endorsed as powerful early years practices. Early literacy provision should prioritise rich adult-child interactions. And the review asserts that what children learn in the specific area of literacy should connect with and reinforce learning in those prime areas and also with other specific areas. And finally, the review argues that early years literacy, reading and later writing depends on building oral language, vocabulary, listening skills, book handing familiarity, understanding of stories and books as meaningful, all before formal writing begins. And then it goes on to recommend that curriculum design for early years literacy should give breadth and richness, offering opportunities for children to engage with stories, talk about them, play with language, not just pre-literate skills but meaningful, purposeful language and literacy context. And then Dorothy Marlin from the Pickler Association says that out of movement comes speech, and from speech comes thinking. Movement is our first opportunity to have communication with the outside world. So we need to really understand in the earliest of years about what that, sorry, I'm just trying to admit people in the waiting room, it's not happening, that movement through the body is their first time of communication. So are we offering those youngest children that opportunity to explore and to move, to really give them that opportunity to communicate with the outside world? So if you have been on my session before, hold fire. The rest of you, can you answer this question? What is the recommended amount of physical activity that a child aged 2 to 5 should have every day? Pop your answer in the chat room, please. Let's find out. Oh, there's a lot of chats that I haven't seen. Let me go in here. Okay, we've got 90, we've got 180, we've got 90, we've got 60, 90, 90, 90, 90. Oh, quite a mixture of 90 and 180. 90, 90, 90, 180, 90. Okay, well done if you held fire. If you've been before, 20, okay, 90, lovely. And we'll leave it there. Okay, let's find out what the answer is. I'll do a little drum roll. Oh. So the recommended amount of physical activity that a young child should have each day is 180 minutes. So 3 hours minimum of physical activity every day. That's from the moment they get up to the moment they go to bed. So depending on what kind of setting you are, will depend on how much of that 3 hours is your responsibility. Now, what we need to think about is the importance of embedding those physical skills, cementing them within the neural architecture of the brain. So, of course, it needs to be 3 hours. 3 hours to learn how to crawl, 3 hours to learn how to walk. Walking is a physical skill that children need to learn. It's a lateral movement. We need to think about how to pick up a glass, how to take their shoes off, how to sit down and stand up. All of these physical skills need to be reinforced and cemented within the neural architecture of the brain. But what does physical activity mean? Well, the World Health Organization defines it quite simply as whole body energy expenditure. So it cannot be anything sitting down. It needs to be whole body. So I want you to have a think about your provision. What kind of provision do you have that would be justifiable as physical activity? And are all children accessing that? On top of that, we have 60 minutes. So within that 180 minutes, we have 60 minutes of something called MVPA, moderate to vigorous physical activity. That means when we're starting to get out of breath, maybe flushing of cheeks, maybe panting, but we're really starting to see the impact on cardio. 60 minutes a day for these children. So again, we need to be thinking about the provision that's available for them. We need to be reflecting on that and thinking about how we can support them physically. Because 80% of communication is non-verbal, and therefore this must be supported through the awareness of the body. Now, in a recent study, what percentage of UK 4-year-olds were not getting enough physical development in their daily lives? What do we think that percentage is? Give me your answers in the chat room. Let's find out. Let's see if we've got optimists, pessimists, realists. 70, 80%, 75, 60, 50, 80, 85, 65. Okay. Nobody. Oh. Who's close? Anya's close. Anya's very close. Okay, the answer is 91%. So 91% of UK 4-year-olds were not getting enough physical development in their daily lives, and this will affect all developmental areas, particularly, of course, PD, communication, language, personal, social, emotional development, because they're all intertwined. Children's language skills at age 5 is the biggest predictor of later attainment. A recent meta-analysis in this year of 72 longitudinal studies, 23,000 plus children, found that vocabulary and grammar assessed before formal reading instruction had moderate and significant predictive effects on later reading outcomes. And this study underscores that early oral language plays a fundamental role in setting children up for early literacy. So it really does matter about the language that we use in early childhood. Now, we have to provide opportunities to extend the movement and vocabulary by introducing a wide variety of different words. Now, I'm particularly going to be focusing right now on shape, position, space and locomotor and action words. Now, the reason we're going to look at these words is because that we know when we introduce them, it also increases children's vocabulary, but also their physicality. We know that actions that are executed are remembered better than those that are read about, and ideas that are communicated in parallel with actions, so gestures and movements, are remembered better than those that are communicated in the absence of movement. Memory ability is enhanced by physical activity. So what I'm going to do now is share with you my other screen. Let me stop this one. Here it is. Let me move that one down because I've got so many screens open. Here we go. And this is the movement vocabulary that I will send to Damon. So if you've on this course, you will have access to this vocabulary. Can everybody see that okay? So these are the movement vocabulary words that I would like you to think about using in your everyday. Just have a look. Are there some that you use more often than others? Think about the manipulation words. Think about action words. Have a look. Are there any in there that you think maybe you could use more, that you could incorporate more? I'll keep going. Now, what I would suggest you do when you receive this movement vocabulary is to print out all of those words on a big font and have them dotted around either the staff room or in your classroom or whatever your capacity is. Maybe you're a childminder, have them on the wall. Just have them there as a provocation for you to think about different ways of movement vocabulary to help develop the children's vocabulary, but also to think about different ways of moving, both for fine and gross motor. Okay, any comments or questions? I can see some things in the chat. Let me have a look. Sidestepping. Thank you, Nikki. Any other comments or questions about the movement vocabulary? Will it benefit you? Will it be something that you think will be useful? Zigzag, thank you, Stacey. Yeah? Good. You're a very quiet group. Is it because it's the 1st of December? Have you all had your advent calendars? Think you tend to repeat, Karen said she thinks she tends to repeat the same words. So yes, absolutely, I'm the same. Unless I consciously think about it, I will always say twisting and turning because they're my favourite ones. So actually, we do need to consciously think about those words that we're using and extend the children's vocabulary. Lovely, thank you, Carol. Definitely more positional language and locomotor movements. Definitely help prompt us to use more words. Fabulous. That's what I like to hear. Okay. Oh, now I've got to find my presentation. I minimise that. Wait a minute. Here it is. Lovely. Let me... why is that not working? Share. Here it is. I found it. Play from current slide. So just to reiterate, movement vocabulary will enhance children's vocabulary, communication, but also their movement competence. Now this, where it talks about actions that are executed, now this is one that I often use for story time. So for example, if I was reading Jack and the Beanstalk, maybe you've got a guided reading session, maybe you've got 3 children with you, maybe you've got a class of 30. So you would be reading Jack and the Beanstalk. Maybe they're familiar with the story because they've seen pictures. But this time you're going to try to do it without the pictures and tell the story with the actions. So when you say beanstalk, the children need to make a beanstalk. When you say giant, they need to make big muscles in their arms. When you say the harp, they need to do this with their hands. When you say hen, they need to do this. So just keeping it quite simple, not having too many. I wouldn't recommend more than 5 or 6 actions, but so the children can listen out for those words. Beanstalk, okay, here we are. The giant, here we are. So it really helps them focus, but also what it's doing here is we're executing those actions, so we're enhancing memory ability. So we're making sure that we cement that through those movements, helping children to remember those words and remember the story with more accuracy than if they did with the absence of movement. So just over to you. How would you feel doing that? Are there some stories that you would feel that you could add movements to or gestures to easier than others? Let's take that to the Zoom room. How would you feel? Talk to me. Talk to me or I'm going to cry. You're all too quiet. Don't make me cry on a Monday. Exactly, Debs. Debs has hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly why they all remember going on the bear hunt, because we all do that one actively. But what about the other ones? Gingerbread Man, absolutely. What about Room on the Broom? What about the Gruffalo? Lovely. Somebody's put, but then does it contradict the brain only being able to focus on one element, e.g. listen, but can't move? Well, because we're just focusing on a gesture rather than a whole movement, so it's not a whole physical movement, so it's not something like walking, climbing, picking up something where we're using quite intense gross motor. It's just gestures, and gestures, those gestures like this is pretty much, I should imagine, something they will have cemented, as is this. This might be a new one, so that might be quite tricky for them initially. But no, absolutely, they will still be listening, because it's only going to be for a brief second. As they listened for that, they're going to do that, and they're going to be more focused. So yes, giant turnip. You do this when outside, especially in the cold weather on the playground, lovely. You could do it with any story, all songs and rhymes. Enormous turnip, one of my favourite ones, the enormous turnip. Owl babies, lovely. Yes, some stories lend to this more than others, 100%. Lovely, thank you. And you can see some of you are starting to realise that actually you already witnessed that when we do it with a little bit of movement, it really does help secure and embed that. Okay, let me move on. I really love this expression, and it really does relate to early childhood development. We often see certain guidance and guidelines on really pushing children into certain areas, but actually we really do need children to be able to wallow in the time of being early childhood, rather than forcing them down a particular trajectory. There's a close link between language and reading skills and the ability to perceive and produce rhythm. Priming with a rhythmic sequence facilitates speech processing and performance on perceptual discrimination in all sensory domains. Sound processing is one of the most complex tasks we can ask of our brain. Motor development refers to physical growth in a child's increasing ability to independently direct their movement journey and explore their environment, which is important for the development of other essential non-motor competencies, including cognitive, communication and language, and social and emotional skills. So it talks about rhythmic sequence, how priming with a rhythmic sequence can really help language and communication. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you some of the things that I do. So maybe you're at the snack table and they're all sitting and you just do this. And then what will happen when you're doing that with the children waiting for snack? What are they going to do? They're going to do the same. And then we get them to come up with a rhyme. So they come up with a rhythm and you copy that. Maybe we are waiting for some other children to put their coats on. Stamp, stamp. So we can make it as simple or as complex as the stage of development for your children. So you will know what they can and cannot do in terms of managing the complexity of the rhythm that you introduce. And what happens is you're really helping them to understand rhythm and sequence, because communication is that. Communication is rhythm, pitch, tonation. If you think about the way the structure of our sentences, we have those syllables, we have the pitch, and we have the tonation. So this is why rhythm and introducing musical percussion or clapping can really help communication and language. Something else that I introduced, so it might be that the children have come to see, you're a childminder and that they've just come in this morning, and you just say, hello Rosie, how are you? Hello Rosie, how are you? Hello Rosie, how are you? And then Rosie could say, I am happy today, or I am sad today. Or we allow that time to clap and use those clapping sounds for the syllables to the rhyme. So clapping and syllables, and that is syllabology, where we think about those syllables and we coordinate that with sounds, whether that's percussion or whether that's clapping. So we can do it in rhymes, we can make up our own rhymes. I know when I was a teacher, when it was time to go and stand in a line, obviously I had my masking tape on the floor, I would say, stand in a line, ah, 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 stand in a line. And we'd do a little bit of staying alive, but stand in a line. And they loved it. So think about ways that you can reinforce rhythm, musicality, clapping, rhyming with different words and language. It will really benefit the children. Okay, let's move on. Role play. Now, we know that role play is really important for young children. It's how they make sense of the world around them. And in the early years, dramatic play is closely connected to their everyday lives. Children will talk and act out past and present events in their own lives and the lives of their family members. Now, recent studies show that children who withdraw from socio-dramatic play are more likely to develop social anxiety, loneliness, depression, and negative self-esteem in later childhood and adolescence. And this is why role play is so important. Now, this was a setting that I think it was in 2018. It went viral because it was quite a new concept at the time, but they adopted a loose parts pedagogy across the whole day nursery, and they removed all of their toys. It got quite a lot of negative press at the time, but it was aligned with Nicholson's theory of loose parts. So they replaced all the toys with recyclable materials, but they kept their books. And so they had lots of natural materials, lots of recyclable materials, and they had lots of loose parts outside. And part of the study, because it was a research study, and this was some of the data that came from that research study. So staff considered that 75% of the 2-year-old children used more language and imagination in their play compared to before the project. And in one 3-year-old class, more than half of the children used their imaginations differently. And in another 3-year-old class, between a quarter and a half of the boys communicated more imaginatively. So when we offer those open-ended resources, we can see it really does impact on creativity, imagination, and language. So do we do that? Have we got enough loose parts provision, both outside and inside, for those children in our care? Now, I want to share with you something that I do to help support creativity and communication. This is my, can you see it? This is my case of curiosity, and the children love my case of curiosity. It's got lots of stickers on the front, and then inside it has random props. It's very apt, a turkey this time of year. Has lots and lots of different things, and what I put in there changes all the time. So lots and lots of random things, slightly easier things for children to use, more tricky things. And what I get them to do with the case of curiosity is we walk around the case together and we sing, What's inside the case? What's inside the case? The case of curiosity. What's inside the case? Tanya's turn to choose. Tanya's turn to choose. From the case of curiosity, Tanya's turn to choose. What's she going to do with that? I think she's going to nibble her pizza. Delicious. Margarita. So it gives the children that opportunity to play with things they might not have, play with objects that they might not have come into contact with. It helps them with that opportunity to develop their communication and language. And then for older children, I would use the case of curiosity and give them 3 different props and ask them to make up a story together. So with my reception class, we would say, once upon a time, there was a panda. And that panda bumped into a burglar. And we go on like that and get the children to come up and create their own stories and navigate their stories using the case of curiosity. And it does work really well, but just make sure you keep refreshing it and change the items in the case. Okay, let's move on. Sorry, my clicker's not working. There we go. Let's think about outdoor play as well. Outdoor play provides rich opportunities for language development. Children often communicate differently when they're outside. And we see that a lot with freer, louder voices. And they're often enthusiastic to share and talk about their ideas and discoveries, more so outdoors than inside. Quieter children often gain confidence and find their voice when they're outside. But how can we, I don't know where that do came from, how can we as educators, what can we do, sorry. What can we do as educators to support those children who do not like being outside? So, over to you. Over to you, educators. What can we do as educators to support those children who do not like being outside? What can we do? What can we do? Tell me. Start with a short time. Take their interest outside. Yep, absolutely. Bubbles. Make sure they are warm or cool enough. In your forest school area, you have reading huts for those who find the outside daunting. Lovely. Take what they like outside, absolutely. Find out what their interests, know your children and transfer them outside. And ask them what they'd like to do outside. So maybe they like mark making. Maybe it's a child that prefers to just mark make at the mark making station. So can we find a space outside where she can use a stick and transfer the drawing that maybe she's done inside, and then we can do it outside. Give them a role to play. Absolutely. They love to be helpers. Follow their interests. Absolutely. Ask them what they would like outside. Create a covered area. Give them a role. Lovely. Use a choose board. Bring tyres in. Become familiar with the resource and then transfer it outside. Lovely. Some lovely ideas there. Thank you. You put paper around the tree to mark on. I love that. Fabulous. Okay, let's continue with the screen share. By the time a baby turns 2, they will usually be able to walk unaided, say 50 or more words, kick a ball, climb furniture and scribble spontaneously. However, babies need to be encouraged and supported by their parents and carers to learn these skills, and their development must be monitored. If developmental delays are not identified and addressed earlier, this may cause significant problems later on. So by the time a baby turns 2, say 50 or more words. So let's have a look at what that looks like in terms of human brain development. Now we can see the main pathways for sensory pathways, language and higher cognitive function really do happen in that first year of life. So this is when it really does matter that we have all of that language available to the children. Lots of opportunities for them to move as well. That's somebody in the chat. there, sorry. Oh, somebody else said, keep the doors open for them to choose, have exciting opportunities. Thank you, yes. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this video. It's a beautiful video. And in the early years, the brain is at its most adaptable. This plasticity means it can quickly respond to different experiences. For example, by around 1 year old, a baby's brain begins tuning into the sounds of the language they hear most often. Are we ready?
Well, every time I say to you, it's time for bed, you kick off. You said you was going to be good for me.
Bye-bye.
So, shall we go to bed?
Yeah.
No? Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Do you want to watch Iggle Piggle for a bit?
I'm going to go to
Iggle Piggle. Are you trying to say Iggle Piggle?
I'm doing this.
You're arguing, but you just went to laugh. Didn't you?
I'm going to go die.
Are you being a cheeky girl?
Okay.
No, you're not getting off the bed.
Da.
No, you're not getting off the bed.
I'm cheating well.
You're not getting off the bed.
Ah.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, really?
I'm dead.
Oh, right. Are you tired?
I'm going to die.
Oh, you're not tired?
I'm going to die.
Do you want to go to sleep?
Oh, I'm going to stop it there. I could watch it all day. Has anybody seen that before? Anybody seen that video before? No. Yes. Any comments? And yes, Kirsty, the 50 words don't all have to be in English. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll often see those communication delays for those children where English is a second language. But what we'll see later on in later childhood is that they will often catch up. So that's the initial developmental delay in terms of language for those children who speak more than one language, and they will often see that they catch up. Great conversing, absolutely. The serve and return in action. It is lovely how the accent's very clear, isn't it? That tonation, very much so. Okay, let's move on. Now, I want to share with you the latest data from the UK survey from the Institute for Health Visiting. More than 1.96 million children received their mandated universal health visiting review in England in the last year, yet many missed out. 434,000 eligible children missed out on those vital reviews. The 2 to 2.5 year review had the lowest uptake, with more than 1 in 4 children missing this review. Now, as we saw in the previous slide, it says if we don't notice and observe those developmental delays, then we can't pick up these issues and help support the children adequately. So we need to make sure that these children are having these checks and that they are available to children, and that parents and families do go to these meetings and we explain how. Sorry, I'm just trying to move. There we are. 93% of health visitors reported an increase in the number of families affected by poverty in the last 12 months. Only 3% of the health visitors surveyed reported that families had not been impacted by the cost of living crisis. 82% reported an increase in children with speech, language and communication delay. 75% reported an increase in child behaviour problems, and 70% reported an increase in children with autism or signs of autism spectrum disorder. So just to that highlighted one, 82% reported an increase in children with speech, language and communication delay. Would anybody like to share any comments on these slides? Any comments? What do you think? I'll stop the share. We can come off mute if you want to. Talk to me about unsurprising. Okay, thank you. Why? Screen time, okay. What else? Home life, more people on phones, watching TV. Callum, you've seen a big increase in speech delays. Anything else? giving screens too young and not having the engagement they need from adults. I don't feel it's just poverty. Families are too busy and don't speak. Parents don't spend quality time with children interacting. So what can we do about it? Still seeing the impact of COVID? What else? These are the families that have attended. What are the other kids like? Absolutely, absolutely, Kerry. No, Kirsty, sorry. That's interesting, Linda. That used to see a child who would talk to their tablet but not interact with people. Less intergenerational time. Yeah, absolutely. A big one too. So what can we do about it? We've all highlighted the problems. What can we do? Educate our parents. Share points and info from our training sessions. Absolutely. More people working from home so the child is ignored. We've had children go for their 2-year checks who have poor language within the setting yet not flagged by the health visitor. Thank you, Emma. Quality childcare, funded childcare. Integrated 2-year checks for families not engaged with health visiting services. Yep, all of these, absolutely all of these. And we really do need to be aware of the situation, and it sounds like many of you are. So we need to be having these conversations with families. We need to give them prompts and ideas and tools. And hopefully when you have your pickup times, whatever they look like, that you have a no screen policy. So absolutely a no screen policy when they come to pick up their child. So the child isn't coming out of your setting with the parent here. The phones have to be away for collection time for the children. So make sure there is a no phone drop off and collection time. And talk about the impact of phones. You know, we're seeing it globally now. We're seeing countries that are now seeing the research evidence from screen time. We're seeing countries like Australia who are banning screens and social media and YouTube for children under the age of 16. It's happening. Schools also seem to let a lot of SNL, speech and language issues, fall through the net too. Sorry, yes. Absolutely, but it matters. We saw on that graph, on the Harvard graph, that it's the first year, that is when it's the most important, and then those subsequent 3 years after that. Yes, older kids are walking into school. Yes, schools do have a responsibility too, 100%. Okay, let's move on. So we need to disseminate this information. We need to give parents ideas. We also need to be very clear on no screens for collection and drop off. The richness of the home and early years communication environment was a strong predictor of early language skills that families, socioeconomic background alone. A stronger predictor of early language skill than family socioeconomic background alone, suggesting that higher quality interaction can mitigate that disadvantage. So the children with who were free school meals children, when we looked at the quality of the interactions in the home learning environment and in the education environment, it can mitigate that disadvantage gap. So it's useful to know that. Now, sorry, death by PowerPoint, more words, but I wanted to share the reading framework because I often visit settings and schools where the reading framework or the writing framework will be thrown at me in terms of what we shouldn't be doing. But we have to remember that the reading framework and the writing framework are non-statutory guidance. The fabulous Tony Bertram, the Professor Tony Bertram from the Centre for Research in Early Childhood, gave this response to the reading framework: with an obsession with measurement and a reductionist curriculum, we are undermining the professionalism of teachers and replacing it with dutiful, unquestioning technicians who will be tested on their ability to inculcate narrow, preordained programs they must deliver, even though research often fails to justify their obsessive approach. So I'm going to leave that there and move on. Just looking at further research around physical development and language. So we know that the Education Endowment Foundation says that when we really focus in on physical development, that young children can make 5 additional months progress in those cognitive outcomes. Also, we know that playing together really helps communication and social skills, and physical activities really support those children who are culturally and linguistically diverse. So thinking about physical activity for those language and for that very reason around those cognitive processing tasks. And Tony Bertram and Chris Pascal, again from the Centre for Research in Early Childhood, talked about how we really need to focus on those songs, those rhymes and those stories before we think about literacy outcomes. So we're going to talk about rhymes. We're going to think about the wheels on the bus. So are we ready to sing the wheels on the bus? I'm going to have a sit down here on the table and I want you to sing with me. Are we ready? The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, and stop. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to do the wheels on the bus using our whole body. So I want you all to stand up and, sorry, there's a feather on the floor, and you're going to do it with me. Are we ready? Stand up tall. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round all day long. What should we have for the lights on the bus go flash, flash, flash? Give me a movement. What should we do? Whole body movement. I don't just want hands, I want the whole body. What can we have? Come on, let's have something big. Lovely, Rosie, we're having that. We're having that, Rosie. We're doing Rosie's one. Ready? The lights on the bus go flash, 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 flash. The lights on the bus go flash, flash, flash all day long. What about the wipers on the bus? Go swish, swish, swish. Give me a swish. Love it, Glan, going side to side. Yeah? I quite like the idea of a floss. Well, you can do whatever you want. Are you ready? The wipers on the bus go swish, 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 swish. The wipers on the bus go swish, swish, swish all day long. Well done. Come back to the screen. Let me get my slippers on because the floor's cold. Talk to me about that. What was different? Nancy put star jumps in, trying to
Way more fun.
It was way more fun, Callum. Good. What else?
So I tried this after the last session I joined with you, and the children absolutely loved it. They were far more engaged. It was exciting. They wanted to do more of it. It was great.
What did you do, Amy? Can you tell me which ones you did?
Wheels on the bus, we did Incy Wincy Spider, which everyone thought was hilarious because we were crawling doing the spider. And then we kind of improvised with 5 little ducks and created our own actions to that, which was really lovely. But yeah, it was much more fun.
Wonderful, thank you. That's feedback right there, isn't it? And Emma, you did the same. You took this from a previous course and the same. Children thought it was great. Other staff thought you were mad. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't matter, does it? It's fine. Anything else? Any other comments? High impact, great idea, and yes, fun. Anybody else try it?
Sleeping bunnies is really good for that as well.
Oh, it is. I love sleeping bunnies. Definitely. We use tap sticks to do big action to songs such as Wheels on the Bus. Lovely. You're going to be trying that one tomorrow. The younger and non-verbally can join in. Absolutely. Lovely. And we're still using those movements. So the movements are still representing the actions and the gestures. So round and round is still round and round. So we're still defining those movements, but we're just using whole body movements. Okay, let's go back to the screen share. Slow learning. Unhurried, slow learning. Now, if anyone hasn't read Alison Clarke's book on slow pedagogy, I really do recommend it. A research study by McRae holds a strong argument for attuning practitioners to the pedagogical significance of moving bodies in the context of early childhood education, and how we should linger in the unfolding of the experience to care for the event by giving it our full attention. And this is what I was saying earlier about not rushing on to that next stage, just thinking and wallowing in that time and really celebrating that time with the child, being with the child in that moment. And then McRae goes on to say it might be that the focus on speech can blind us to other important ways of knowing the world. Now I'm just going to stop the share, because what I want to do, I've put discuss there because I want to find out from you how you would see or represent that slow pedagogy in terms of your own professional practice. So I want you to think about that wallow. So Professor Tina Bruce always talks about wallowing in the moment, wallowing in that time. So would anybody like to talk to me about their sharing, their practice, and share their practice in terms of slow pedagogy and attuning to the space? Anybody?
I will. So we
Thank you, Amy.
we do lots of repetition. Obviously, we're 0 to 3, so we're integrated within that whole age range. So we do a lot of repetition and we simplify. So our intents are simplified. We have challenge for the older children, and we really do repeat. We only move things on when we feel that there is extension or challenge that we can add. But there are still those simplified sort of opportunities for our younger children to go back and have a go. We're also really aware that we only have some children for a very short space of time every week. So they don't come every day, 8 till 5, or do a session every day. We might only get them once a week. So if we was to keep changing everything every week, they only get to do it maybe once or twice. So we do really try and slow that process down, not move things on, revisit. We might extend it into our group times. For example, we've done a camera project with some of our older children, and it started just for an interest of them wanting to take pictures with some cameras that didn't necessarily work, but just looking at the buttons. We then moved that onto a camera that did work. We've explored it through the iPads. We've then taken it into our group times, and they've taken their own pictures and positioned and talked about how we have to hold it still, how we get consent. They're using their body to reposition like their friends when they're taking a picture or their objects. So for us, it is really repeating and sort of enhancing, but just taking our time and doing smaller steps with what we do.
Love it. I love those enhancements as well, Amy. Lovely. Thank you. It's a lovely example. We've got not worrying about time too much, not rushing transitions. Absolutely. If a child wants to challenge the routine, have the patience to talk it through with them. If a child is engaged, let them carry on rather than sticking to routines. We do repetition at circle time on our shapes and number and colour of the week, letting children show examples. Lovely, Julia. Lovely. So we can see it's just really letting those children have that time, have that space, have the environment to just wallow in being young, rather than pushing them into that next stage before they're ready. But we can only ever know they're ready if we observe those children. So we do need to be conscious of knowing that reciprocal relationship that we have with the young children. Would anybody else like to share before I share the screen? Share any of their slow pedagogy practices? Let children be children, 100%. And as I say, if you haven't read Alison Clarke's book, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. Beautiful read. Okay. Let's move on. So what do we need to consider in terms of reflecting on everything that I've covered. It's been very wordy, I know, but it's really want us to tunnel in on how important that language is and how we need to consolidate those movements, how we need to think about those vocabulary words that we used in terms of movement, locomotor, action, position, language that we're consolidating, and just thinking about bringing those stories to life a little bit more, thinking about making those action rhymes bigger. But as well as that, we need to be getting down to the child's level for those face-to-face connections, and I'm sure you will do that anyway. We need to remember that video with the serve and return interactions. Think about those serve and returns. What does it look like? Are we allowing space and time for that children to return the conversation back to us? Intentionally pausing to give children that thinking and talking time. And for older children, I like to start rhymes. So we were doing a project recently on Jack and the Beanstalk, and Fee Fi Fo Fum. We took Fee Fi Fo Fum, and then we started to change it a little bit. So it was Fee Fi Fo Fox, the giant has smelly socks. And we were thinking about rhyming words, and they were coming up with different words, and we were trying to put them into these rhymes and finding words that would rhyme with them for that last word. So think about ways that you can introduce rhymes to your provision as well. Follow the child's lead and comment on what they're doing, not what you want them to do. I know there will be times when we need to have those directions as well, but think about commenting on what they're doing, but also remember, if it's a new physical skill to them, let them have that time and then talk to them about it afterwards. Repeat and expand. You said car. Yes, a big red car is travelling fast. Think about how we can add the adjectives, how we can add those describing words for the children. Think about the exploratory words that we can really help for those children. Avoid over questioning. Focus on commenting and modelling. Think about the language that you use around the children with your peers and with the children. Expose children to diverse vocabulary during play, routines and transitions. Again, think about that vocabulary. Maybe we can have a list of adjectives as well that we can have around the wall. Think about the language that we use. Use story language. Rich descriptive words and varied sentence structures naturally. I always like to start with Once Upon a Time with some stories to get children understanding that tale, that's the start of a traditional tale, Once Upon a Time. Label emotions and sensations to build the interoceptive and emotional vocabulary. So thinking about, maybe you might have emotion cards, you might have emotion hearts, you might have the emotion cushions, you might have emotion dolls, whatever it is, but think about those emotions and think and consolidate those language, the terms with those emotions so that children can understand frightened, sad, worried, excitable, tired, hungry, etc. Provide a print-rich environment with signs, labels, books and mark-making opportunities, and I'm sure you have that, your drawers with crayons in, you might have a cupboard with paper in, and we can have the little picture of the paper and then the word next to it as well, and we can help children to identify those words. So we're starting to decode some of those letters as well. Use nursery rhymes, chants and rhythmic activities to support that phonological awareness. We've already talked about that, tapping and making rhythms together, and thinking about those chants, Fee Fi Fo Fox, the giant has smelly socks. Thinking about bringing those rhymes using whole body actions. Bring stories alive through movement, props, puppets and role play. Think about your case of curiosity. What are you going to put in your case of curiosity? In fact, I'm going to stop there because I want to know what you're going to put in your case of curiosity. Can you tell me what you would add to your case of curiosity? Have you got an old suitcase? What are you going to put in it? Tell me. Let's pop some things in the chat so that we've all got this, so that we can then add some fantastic resources. I'll go first. What else? What are you going to put in there? Wooden nutcracker. Oh, I love that. Feather duster, massager, a funny shaped key. Oh, wonderful. What else? Mirrors, scarves, keys, pine cone, feather. Lovely. Hats, sponges, a treasure chest, squeaky balls, squishy ball, coloured stones. Yep, gems. I've got gems, an empty spice jar, shells, torch, twinkly lights, a mirror, wooden bobbins, huge pine cones, a pumpkin, old phone. Got a lot of these things already. Funny hats. They do love a funny hat. Tinsel, a ticket. Oh, I love that idea. A ticket. Feathers, hats, cotton reels, postcard. Oh, I love that one too. A purse, handbags. Yes, handbags and purses, lolly sticks, a bell. I love that idea. Musical instruments as well. An old phone. I think I've got an old phone in mine. Yes. I've got teddy bears. Got this one. This is one of my favourite ones. A whisk. An old train or bus ticket. A map. Oh, fabulous. An old photograph. A whistle. A camera. Sunglasses. Pegs. And we can have simple things like cups, plates. I was doing some work with I had some plastic cups in there, and some children were pretending they were headphones. So they were using their imagination, taking those cups from what they were as a descriptive item. So very much that theory of loose parts, and they were pretending they were headphones. Telescope. Wonderful, some lovely ideas there. Thank you. So hopefully you've all got some. I'm gonna add some of these in mine. You've all got some lovely ideas of what you can add into your case of curiosity. Some wonderful ideas there. Oh, one more. Pirate's flag, empty bowl and wooden spoon. I know what I would be doing with that one. Lovely. You could also have themed ones. I just saw somebody say that. Absolutely. Sing regularly. Whether you can sing or not, the children will love to hear you sing. So please don't be precious about your voice, and just get on with it. Sing regularly during routines, tidy up time, transitions. Think about introducing little songs. Maybe change some songs, some rhymes. Change the words in the rhymes. If you're happy and you know it, go outside. If you're something, find ways to kind of adapt the songs as much as possible. Use cross-lateral movements to support brain integration and language processing. So think about maybe a bit of dancing where we cross the midline. Maybe we're doing a bit of Saturday Night Fever. Maybe we can tap our knees on the other side of our body. Maybe we can stretch up and then cross our arms, do a bit of the Macarena. Think about ways to do cross-lateral movements. Marching as well. Provide sensory-rich exploration, lots of descriptive language. Combine movement with that vocabulary, zigzag, stomping, swooshing, stretching, slithering, floating, gliding. Think about that lovely, rich vocabulary you can offer for the children to help to support movements. And finally, some of you will have seen this. This is the research project that I did at the Centre for Research in Early Childhood. And I worked with 8 reception classes and 4 maintained nursery classes for 6 weeks. And I saw each one for 1 hour a week. And this was the data that we observed from the early learning girls. Now, what was really interesting after the 6 weeks was the huge gains against development matters, communication and language. I was I knew physical development was going to be high, but I didn't realise that communication and language was going to be quite a significant jump in terms of their developmental progress. And then this was another assessment tool called the DAP assessment tool, where you ask the children to draw themselves at the beginning of the intervention and then again after. And this was Cahill, his self-portrait. And the first one, the one on the left, is him 6 weeks beforehand, and the one on the right is him afterwards. And this is what it looked like. I only had permission for one setting to publish the photos, and we could only do the inside photos because of permissions of other children. So this was one setting, and this was just after 3 weeks. So this was 3 weeks against the prime areas. Now what you'll see is on the previous slide, the 6 weeks physical development caught up with communication and language, but in the first 3 weeks, communication and language and PSED were higher than physical development. It was a physical development intervention, but look how communication and language and PSE increased significantly. So I found that data fascinating. And this is my last slide, and this is how I end all of my presentations. Are you worthy of imitation by Rudolf Steiner? Because as you've seen in all of the evidence, all of the data that I've shared with you, the children will be learning from you and from the people in their home. And we can help bridge that gap, that disadvantage gap, if we do all of the things I've been talking about, all of those what nexts, all of the what nows, thinking about our language, being conscious about the use of our language. So really taking responsibility of the vocabulary that we introduce around children. So please be considerate of the language that you use. Now I want you, if you have your phones with you, this is a free music activities download resource. This is a list of, I think it's 14 pieces of music to use with different activities, and those activities you can really help to support language and positional language and communication with those activities. And this one is my recently launched Playthings cards, which came out last year. So if you work with children with babies, these Playthings cards are for baby movers, so those who are not yet walking. Early movers, they are for those who are just starting to toddle and waddle. And then confident walkers, and they are for the older children. And there are 50 cards, and this is in conjunction with Community Playthings. So Community Playthings have sponsored these, and these are available on my website for £47. Get 50 cards in your pack. And if you're in a nursery, if you're in a maintained nursery or reception, this is a physical development scheme of work, and this is a year of planning. And this is the evidence from the research study I did at the Centre for Research in Early Childhood. And this is physical development, that intervention that I spoke about, that then supports communication, language, personal, social, emotional development, and other specific areas of learning. And finally, another QR code. If you live anywhere near Birmingham and you love the message of moving more and playing more, please come and join Ruth LeQuy and myself at the Move More and Play conference at Aston University. It would be lovely to see you there. And here I am on social media. So please do follow me, and if you have any questions or you want to share anything that I've spoken about today, or you want to show me, I've had some people sharing some lovely practice in action with me on Instagram and on other platforms, so please do share what you're doing. It'd be wonderful to see your work and to hear more about what you're doing as a result of my training. So thank you very, very much for all you do in the early years sector, and I will stop the share. And these slides will come to you along with the movement vocabulary.